He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai whakaronga mai ki te Aotai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. Ko Sally Round tēnei.
No mai, haere mai, it's great to have your company. Ko Janina Schwaneke aho. Today, I catch up with Kerry Warsnop, who farms in Te Tai Rāwhiti. She doesn't just farm though. She's trying to get better results for the damaged land and its people.
How to prevent the nasties from cows' urine leaching into waterways? Well, Cosmo's at a farm in Canterbury, which is using what are known as catch crops to mop up the excess.
And later, from a tiny shed, little sprouts have turned into quite a big business for a mother and daughter near Te Puke.
But first to what's been making headlines in the primary sector this week. And troubled dairy giant Synlait has had some good news. Shareholders have approved a $218 million cash injection from its two largest shareholders, China's Bright Dairy and A2 Milk, to help clear the dairy company's debts and keep the business afloat. Shareholders this week also voted for a $450 million finance package from a group of banks. Chair George Adams hopes the funding boost will give farmers confidence in the company's future.
It has been a challenging period for Synlait. However, today represents a significant milestone for our company. This equity raise is critical for Synlait's future. I'd like to make special mention of the continued support of our two major shareholders, Bright Dairy and the A2 Milk Company. Their investment demonstrates their deep commitment to Synlait's future.
Meanwhile, dairy prices continue to rise, reaching a near 3-month high this week. Staying with dairy, Fonterra is investing around $150 million to expand the cool store at its Whareroa site in Taranaki. The new cool store will be the size of 3 rugby fields, store around 26,000 tonnes of cheese, and increase the site's cool store capacity by around 5,000 tonnes. Construction will begin next month and is expected to take 3 years to complete.
A niche product of the meat industry was under the spotlight too this week. New Zealand's meat industry is very good at getting value out of every part of an animal, including, it seems, high-value blood and gland products, which are in hot demand. In the last financial year, blood and gland sales rose 118% on the year before to $270 million. Meat Industry Association Chief Executive Surma Karapiva explains what they're used for.
Blood products and glands really go into the pharmaceutical industry. Blood products in particular, they get used for serums and vaccine bases. And New Zealand, because we are disease-free, we hold that disease-free status. Animal blood for serum is highly sought after and highly valued because it's so pure and disease-free.
Meanwhile, researchers are working to create a natural spray to help reduce meat spoilage. The meat industry reports that between 0.5 and 1% of export product is returned or rejected due to spoilage or contamination. But that still equates to tens of millions of dollars. The joint research project between Alliance Group and microbiology and food science researchers from the University of Otago has received $1 million through IMBY's Endeavour Fund. Here's Otago's Dr. Sam Wardell on how it works.
Animals have what we call an innate immune system. So essentially, if you get bacteria or an infection, the animal can produce what we call these little defense peptide molecules, and they kill the bacteria. Ultimately, what we want to do is harness those from both sheep and cow, and we want to use them to prevent the bacteria that will cause meat spoilage.
Farmer confidence is on the way up, going on the latest survey of 450 farmers from Rabobank. Despite colder weather this week, farmers seem to have a spring in their step. It's the first time their mood has been up since late 2021. Rabobank says the improved dairy forecast, strong beef prices and lamb prices inching upwards, combined with the Reserve Bank's decision to lower the official cash rate, were the major sources of optimism. Rising input prices continue to be the major source of concern going forward.
Over to wool, and the director of the New Zealand Merino Company says using pain relief during tailing is worth the money, as it reduces lamb stress levels. New pain relief requirements have been rolled out, and from next June, all of Aotearoa's merino farmers will have to administer pain relief for castration, tailing and shearing injuries. The company hopes this will secure it premium market access for high-end fashion brands like Icebreaker and Smartwool. Company director and fourth-generation farmer Paul Ensor runs 6,000 merino sheep on Glenarn Station in the mid-Canterbury High Country and has been using pain relief on farm for 3 years.
We see the benefits sort of at the time. Obviously, there's an additional cost, but also we see that animals through the tailing chute suffer less stress and they mother up more quickly with their mums post-tailing. So they're able to move back to their pasture and start grazing and return to sort of normal behaviours quite quickly.
News this week that Canterbury is becoming attractive to horticulturalists. It's already known for its dairy and seed production, but a good flow of water and companies looking to diversify has seen Canterbury become the hotspot for new horticulture plantings. Canterbury's regional manager for fruit feed, Blair Murdoch, says there's been a noticeable increase in demand.
There certainly is more demand here in Canterbury, and one of the main drivers for that is the reliability of our water and the amount of flat land that we have. And there's also some corporates now starting to move into this area as well. Some of the food process companies are bringing the vegetable production down to Canterbury, moving down from Marlborough. We've got some corporate growers coming into the area as well, looking at doing some large plantings of apples, and there's also still good demand for potatoes, etc.
Sticking with growers, a far north strawberry grower is attracting high prices for its early season fruit. Kaikohe Berries has hit the local market with its strawberries grown in large hydroponic tunnels. Head grower Vikram Lakimana says they're making the most of a lucrative $28 a kilogram boost in prices.
We are dealing with two types of strawberries. One is short day variety and another one is everbearing. So the short day variety, they kind of known, to come to production as early as now, and they will end early around December. So that is what we targeting this season to get in as early as possible, make that money, and then finish before December. But that time you will have a lot of strawberries around New Zealand coming into the market already, but the prices will be very low that time.
And lastly, are you a shepherd with your own team of dogs looking for a new job? Well, the much-loved country retreat for King Charles, Sandringham Estate, which covers over 2,000 hectares, is advertising for a skilled shepherd to join its small livestock team. Anyone interested has until the 27th of September to apply.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
She's a farmer, served on Gisborne District Council for 3 years, and most recently completed her research as a Nuffield scholar. Kerry Warsnop is a woman well versed with understanding policy, having sat on both sides of the table, making it and implementing it on the family farm near Rere Falls. I asked Kerry to talk me through what her research found about policy making in New Zealand. We're here at the family farm in Rere, north of Gizzy. We can hear the falls just a little bit in the background there, actually, a beautiful view of them. Can you tell me a bit about the farm?
I am Kerry Warsnop. This is 373 hectares, sheep and beef, finishing and breeding.
You've also spent some time on the Gisborne District Council. Can you tell me kind of what prompted you to look into that role and to run?
There was a catchment project started up in our local area, got involved with that, and Federated Farmers needed someone to contribute to their environment pieces of work at the time. So a few different threads sort of pulled together that had me working and sort of reading a lot of policy documents, and that sort of coincided with a change of government. We had change from John Key's government to the Labour-led government, which, as most people know, that sort of foreshadowed some pretty major changes proposed for farming. And with others, I'd been working a lot trying to get ahead of what were some quite big issues for the Gisborne region in particular. Like, we'd been designated a special area along with Northland by Shane Jones for planting trees. And if you're from Gisborne, you realise we already had some pretty major issues with the trees we had. So after spending a bit of time with feds and doing a lot of work, trying to raise awareness of what these policies meant for us, I decided, maybe we could achieve more from the inside and stood for council. Everyone on the land knew that we had some issues, and we had some big issues about to kind of really make themselves felt. If you're in our rural areas, you can see that, self-evident. What probably was less well understood was how these policy proposals were going to put that on steroids, and the ETS being a classic example there. So in some ways there's been a collision of the policy ideas with the physical reality of, applying a concept when you haven't really ground truthed its suitability in the local context. And, Gisborne's ground zero for that, and our population locally are living through the consequences.
Obviously, you spent your 3 years as council, and more recently you've been doing work as a Nuffield scholar, kind of looking at exactly these issues and that relationship between policy and decision makers. What was your personal experience like being on the other side and being involved in the policy making and decision making?
To begin with, I really enjoyed it because you actually had access to a lot more information for starters, and you really got to get your head around the different levers that were at play. I think what surprised me was how few of the levers council actually held. And that very quickly became a frustration because council, and you'll hear this from just about everybody who's ever been a councillor, it's a creature of statute, which means that essentially it picks up what it's handed by central government and it gets to mould it a little bit, but ultimately it's a delivery arm of the direction that's set by central government. But of course, that doesn't come with funding. That just comes with, the parameters that you must operate within. And of course, often those parameters that you're trying to operate within, they may not really fit your circumstances locally, and they may be highly costly for your local community to try and fit within. And for a council that doesn't have a lot of money, which certainly describes Gisborne District Council, you've really got your back up against the wall. You're constantly trying to afford to pay for the calibre of people that you need to wrangle with these emerging and continually evolving policy directives. All of these ingredients together, you're not really looking at something where you're well resourced to address the scale and breadth of the issues that all councils are dealing with and the nation is dealing with these days.
Is that what kind of informed your research for, as part of the scholarship, kind of looking at the intersection of these issues and how we can maybe try and improve on them?
Yeah, I left council. I didn't stand again. I didn't stand for re-election at the end of that first term. The primary reason for that is I genuinely could not see what staying there would achieve. A lot of the things that I'm trying to change, you can't change here within the timeframes that are actually going to get ahead of these problems. So I wanted to know, why is it not more functional? Why are we not better equipped to deal with rapidly emerging problems? Problems don't emerge really slowly, when something has changed quite dramatically at a central government level. So yeah, that was that stuff I wanted to understand. Could the system work better? And if it could, how?
And what did you find with your research?
So Nuffield's an international agricultural scholarship, and it gives you the chance to travel, and you go with this lens of kind of, research, investigation, and trying to find answers. And I think the biggest and most valuable asset from such an experience is being able to look back at New Zealand objectively and see things that are quite hard to see when you're living in amongst it all. And I hadn't realised how much of an outlier we are in regards to quite a few things that we do domestically. I didn't find anyone else, no countries that I visited anyway, had a 3-year election cycle. Politics all over the world is leaning quite heavily into performative governance, but New Zealand has recently got really good at it. And there's a problem with that and it's probably quite significantly influencing the amount of polarisation that we're seeing in people, because when you live with the poor outcomes and you can see that they're not materially changing, you become deeply cynical about whoever it is that promised this shiny thing that actually did nothing. And while on the other hand, the people who aren't close to it are going to be like, hey, that shiny thing was great. What are you complaining about? These are big issues that lie at the heart of the way we govern ourselves.
If there were things that we could do to address these challenges, what would your priority be, I suppose?
With regards to agricultural policy, the need to communicate differently is really imperative. The reality is so much of our policy in the upper echelons of where it's developed in a language that the people who use it are never going to comprehend. It's almost developed a language of its own. And so that makes it really difficult for the people who are, designing policy and the people that are supposed to live with it and use it essentially, how do you find common ground if you're not speaking a common language? So focusing on having a shared language, shared understanding, that's a place to start. The research report also talks a lot about building the means to reinstate trust. There's a huge amount of cynicism in the public. Agriculture sector is classic. But that cynicism is because we see the difference between what is said and what is done. And so investing in the means of limiting that and building back genuine relationships, genuine change will foster trust. And that requires transparency. And that's something that I think, in particular in agriculture, we have a lot to learn from that. And the last thing that I guess I'm asking for, we need politics to defend the space, to have these conversations and to be deliberate about what we choose to do instead of what we do now. So I would say we need to understand ourselves much better and then apply that to how we would design policy differently. We can use all the tools that exist. There's systemic design, there's human-centred design, there's, miles and miles and miles of research and practice that already exists. The public service already knows about a lot of this stuff. We need the political will to create the space to design the institutional structures and the authorisations and the tools and the frameworks and all the stuff that you need to shift the system in favour of substantive change.
I was speaking there to Kerry Warsnop at a home above the Rere Falls near Gisborne. You can read more about her research and findings on rnz.co.nz/countrylife, which takes you to our podcast page. Just check under the episode notes and you'll find a link.
Now we're heading to Woodstock Farm in North Canterbury. Cosmo Kentish Barnes is with Shane Malley, who's the Field Operations Team Leader at Plant and Food Research. Dairy farmer Tom Turner's also there, and he's taken them to a muddy paddock that's getting a makeover after winter grazing.
So we're located up the Waimakariri Gorge, just south of Oxford, tucked up against the foothills. One dairy is on a flat irrigated and the other dairy is on the downs. That's all dryland. So we're milking just under 3,000 cows along with 1,000 head of young stock across 800 hectares of dairy platform and another 800 hectares of dairy support.
And we are looking at a spader and seed spreader from Holland that's sowing crops into the ground.
Yes, so going in the ground here at the moment is oats and Italian grass. We're sowing this in behind a 12-tonne dryland Swede crop, and usually this kind of ground we wouldn't be able to get into until November or December with the first pass of cultivation, whereas this is our last paddock that we're doing, and it's the start of September with our first paddocks that went in straight after grazing in July. So it's been going since start of July till nearly finishing now.
And these machines are relatively new, aren't they, in New Zealand?
Yes, in New Zealand, and from my knowledge it's the only one here in Canterbury. Not super common because it does rely on a heavier soil with not too many stones, and Canterbury majority does have a lot of stones, so it has a niche spot, and we use it specifically for sowing catch crops straight after winter grazing.
Yes, and so you've been involved in quite a large catch crop project here on the farm, haven't you?
Yes, started off with Plant and Food doing a sediment runoff. So we have slopes here on our farm, and it was measuring the runoff post-grazing between having a catch crop or not. At the time we were struggling to get on the ground with this country and talk to Shane here at Plant and Food, and he said, have you thought about a spader? And that was a very novel term for us at the time, and did a bit of homework on it, and so from there it ended up being 3 years of trials with the team there, and we've carried on our own will with the spader, continuing with catch crops.
Now Shane, how did you get involved with this project?
Yeah, so I should mention firstly Brendan Malcolm, who's the lead scientist for this project. We started looking at catch crops and trying to work in a system approach of supporting farmers following winter grazing and trying to have an impact on any nutrient losses potentially through those winter months. So catch crops, it literally started from just dropping a drill at Ashley Dean in a fodder beet paddock. We literally did 3 or 4 strips with some oats just to see if it would actually work in the middle of winter. Would it grow? Would it take up nitrogen? And to our surprise, it did a fantastic job. But one of the key things there is 90% of our trial work has been on farm. So the work that we've been doing has been working with the likes of Tom, farmers, getting their feedback, because every scenario is different. We've also worked in different regions, so here in Canterbury, West Coast and Southland. There has been some work done in the Waikato as well, predominantly mainly in the wintering systems in the South Island.
Can you tell our listeners who are not farmers what catch crops are?
So catch crops are pretty much a cool-tolerant cereal. So we want an active growing cereal through the winter months that we can plant as quickly as possible after winter grazing. So when the cows come off, a fodder beet crop, anything like that we can get in the ground. So usually oats, rye corn, or even triticale can be used. And what it does is it's taking up nitrogen. Okay, so the key is getting that crop in the ground. It gives you the environmental impact of supporting, of taking up nitrogen. What it's also doing is producing more production on farm for farmers as well. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win all around. And it's been hugely positive. As Tom mentioned, the sediment work. Obviously we were looking at nitrogen losses beginning with, but now we're also showing that catch crops can actually reduce sediment losses as well. With that, we have shown through all our sites, both south and west coast and here in Canterbury, we've reduced sediment movement or losses on farm by 40%. In terms of the catch crop, we're between 40 and 60% of potential losses of nitrogen those crops are now picking up.
That's huge.
It's been fantastic and something we didn't really know much about until we started using catch crops.
Tom, what made you want to be part of this project in the first place?
Always wanting to try and be innovative and seeing what we can do better and capture some of that nitrogen that's otherwise lost. So being stewards of the land, wanting to try and do best management practices and be at the forefront of that.
What are some of the key benefits for you in terms of having these catch crops in the ground?
A major one for us is timing. So on this particular land type that we use the spader for, typically we're not getting onto that land previously until November, December for a first cultivation and seed going in the ground.
So you would just leave the paddock empty after winter grazing?
It would be left, it would just be too wet to get any good results from a conventional cultivator going through, whereas now we're getting it in as soon as the end of June, start of July, so we're getting a jump start of 4 to 5 months of growing conditions in our most productive months of the spring, and so we're gaining a lot of kilograms of dry matter growing in that period as opposed to being short and buying in or just having to find other alternatives of a feed source.
And catch crops are also having a big impact on your environmental footprint.
Absolutely, so through our overseer it's entered into that as well. I can't quite quote the numbers, but it has reduced our footprint off that as well in terms of nitrogen leaching. So we've got a forage there that's capturing not just nitrogen in the soil but carbon as well, so it's a win-win for both.
Now you mentioned overseer just before. That is software that enables you to access on-farm research data.
Yes, so it's based on a lot of data and previous work around farm systems and a typical result of what your farm practices are. And so when the farm practices are entered in, your amount of cows that you're doing, your crop rotations, it'll come out with a number of what your estimated nitrogen leaching is, and so that goes towards our compliance.
So Shane, farmers and scientists work on overseer together.
Yeah, they do, and all the work and all the trial work that we've done over the last 9 years, all that data has been collected and being used by overseer to help support the farmers and showing the benefits of using a catch crop.
Yes. Now the tractor with the spader is on its way back, and I will take a photograph of it for anyone who is interested in seeing what it looks like. And Shane, this paddock's just about done.
It is just about done, and I mean, as you can see here, what it's been left like after the cows have been on here is obviously pegging damage. There's no infiltration in the soil, and the key here too is you come back in a month's time and you'll have a green tinge right across the paddock.
And in terms of waterways, what impact will this catch crop system have?
Nothing but positive. Yeah, we've already mentioned about the sediment, anything movement. The catch crops in the ground are obviously going to reduce anything that's going to be coming off the paddocks, and also you're catching in nitrogen.
So I guess climate, farm management and soil are the key words.
Yeah, exactly right. And it all comes back to the farming system and how you use it. Predominantly we've only used cereals, so we just used oats, and that's usually been taken through a green shop silage. But what we're seeing now, especially in wet areas, doing that Italian oat mix, just because it gives you their flexibility. You can take the oats off the silage. The Italian can stay on for either grazing or even silage purposes, depending on the system. Well, we've also seen, particularly on the west coast in those wet environments, the cereals do struggle in some areas. But with the Italian there, for whatever reason, it's something we need to look into, will actually come away in those wet areas, which has been fantastic to see. Yep.
So how many hectares now are you putting into catch crops?
We're doing about 50 hectares of catch crops each season now, so all with the spader.
And before you were doing what?
Before we were doing maybe 10 or 15 with a conventional direct drill.
With this system here, do more seeds go into the ground than would usually be sown?
Yeah, so what we try and do is target 300 plants per metre squared. So if you were just drilling a straight oat, that would be around 120 kilograms per hectare.
So it's a lot more.
It is a lot more, but the key for that is getting a good number of plants in the ground, that early establishment, and getting that canopy closure as quickly as possible. When you get canopy closure really fast, that means the crop's going to develop at 100% of its growth rate, and then it's going to do its environmental job as quickly as possible.
A bit of a cost for you, a lot more seeds.
Yes, but it's returned to us and kilos of dry matter grown at the other end.
So you worked it out.
Yes, we did. The first year we were on a slightly lower rate than what Shane had prescribed, and we just found it's just not as effective as going there. So we're running a rate of 100 kilos of oats per hectare plus 20 kilos of Italian to try and get that 300 seeds per metre square.
So heaps of roots down there in the ground.
Exactly.
Do they go quite far down, the catch crop
Yeah,
roots?
it's surprising, and it was from one of the photos of Shane and his research in Southland that saw the difference between two plots that had catch crops and ones that didn't. The status of the soil after harvesting was that the roots were a lot deeper, the earthworm activity was a whole lot more, and so there's a whole lot of extra hidden benefits that are going on beneath the surface of the soil by having roots there and having that soil biology working.
That's interesting. So more activity under the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got roots, you've got more organic matter going back into the soil as well. It's a win-win for the environmental, absolutely. Like if you're coming out of a pugged paddock and being able to get this in earlier, it's been a fantastic benefit.
Yes.
Yep.
So in terms of your trials, did you have several small plots on the farm?
Yeah, we did. So the sediment one was we had 8 plots, and these were what we call sediment traps. So what they do is they're a small area of 10 by 4. They measure when we have a rainfall event. The water sort of runs down into a channel. It's collected into a bin, so we can measure how much water's come off that area. Those bins capture the sediment that's run off that as well, so we can measure that as well. And we had half those plots were in a catch crop, the other half were left fallow, so that would give you a typical what's been done in the past to what's happening now. And then we had other trials down on the other part of the farm of Tom's platform, where we were looking at direct drilling oats, so looking at different species. So we're looking at oats and Italian, oats on their own. In other trials we've also looked at rye corn, because they have benefits for other areas of the farming systems. And also we've been looking at on the arable farms as well, where they do winter grazing and putting in crops like wheat and barley for that as well. What we have found is most cereals will be a good catch crop. Barley not so much, it's not that winter active, it doesn't like wet feed as much as what the other oats do. So oats, as I mentioned before, oats, rye corn and triticale are very winter active.
So on this farm here, oats and Italian ryegrass work best?
Well, it works best for Tom's system.
Is that because it's a great feed?
Yes, it is, and it gives us flexibility. So we've got the winter active of the oats that come out of the ground in those colder soil temperatures, a lot more aggressive than a typical grass. But then once that is harvested for the first time, we've got the flexibility of the Italian ryegrass growing again, whereas that oats, once its first harvest has happened, it won't grow. So it gives us that flexibility to make decisions.
And so a month ago there would have been cows in here on sweets?
Yes, there would have been. Yeah, it was a different story then when there was a bit of rain and it looked all wet and a lot more surface water as well. So yes, it would have been a mob of 200 odd dairy cows grazing this paddock of Swedes.
Yes. And Shane, this project has officially finished after 4 years. What are you working on now?
So we've got a small project now that's just begun, working with farmers in the high country where they've sort of struggled to grow catch crops. We've also got trials set up in central Otago, and those sort of inland areas are a lot cooler, around Wanaka up through Middlemarch as well. So it's just a real good continuation, and this is really led by catchment groups as well, which has been fantastic to be involved with. And so that's the next stage. That's what we're looking at for this part of the program.
So the word's getting out there, and I did see that you've got some very useful information on Facebook and Instagram.
There is. We've got 2-page booklets, outlets, so you can read all the information about catch crops, right from sowing, which is the key of catch crops. You want to get your crops in as early as possible following winter grazing. That's when you're going to mitigate the most nitrogen losses potentially. But also the earlier you get it in, the more yield you're going to get from your catch crop as well. And it's all about their nitrogen uptake.
And Tom, what else is happening? I guess you're in the thick of calving.
Yes, we're now 90% of the way through our calving system, so now our busy time is starting to spray out paddocks for crops for next season and get them in the ground, and looking forward towards cow mating as well, so never a dull day.
Tom Turner in a paddock being sown with catch crops on his Waimakarere Gorge dairy farm. Cosmo was also chatting with Shane Malley from Plant and Food Research.
Hi, I'm Mark Anderson and I'm a dairy farmer down here in the south. We have adopted regenerative principles on our land, and you are listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
你希望你想看看我种植的花吗？
可以。
Be careful.
Okay.
The step a little bit.
I'm very intrigued as to what I'm going to be seeing in here. Oh my goodness, this is full of plants. Wow.
If you're lucky enough to be invited into Yuka Lee's home near Te Puke in the Bay of Plenty, you'll find yourself enveloped in greenery.
It's pretty much a wall of indoor plants in here.
I just love that. There's a little greenhouse all cutting from here. Oh, there's old mom. Like a jungle.
It's like a jungle in here.
Carly's love for growing things is not just a hobby. It's sprouted into a business with her daughter Jiang Yu. And outside the jungle-like living room, you'll find their venture, Mama Carly's farm, in a small but perfectly formed greenhouse.
And what a beautiful spot this is. Would this have been part of, I see it, maybe a dairy farm or a
so that's the
grazing
neighbour
block over there?
Yeah. So this, it's quite a nice spot in Te Puke. We're not in the middle, but we're not too far from town too. So it's a good size for us to sort of care for and realistically grow microgreen. We don't need that much land.
That's right. You need sun though.
Yeah, we do need the sun.
Is it a sunny spot?
Yeah. So it's not too bad. Summertime it's really perfect because we get a bit of shelter from the shed beside us. And
so you do need that shade as well?
Yeah. So summertime we actually will put a shade cloth over the greenhouse too, just to sort of cover a little bit of the sun from the green from the sun, because it can be quite strong in the summertime. But
chilly out here. Should we go back inside?
Yeah.
Jiang Yu and her mum grow microgreens. These are small but nutrient-rich vegetable seedlings, which are harvested for eating very soon after sowing.
As you can see, we're quite a small sort of operation here. So it's the total growing area about 72 square metres.
72 square metres?
Yes.
This is it here?
This is it,
Right. And you're supplying 35 supermarkets from
roughly,
here?
approximately.
From this small area?
Yes.
Wow. How much are you producing a week?
The cut ready-to-eat pack, maybe approximately 2,000 packs every week.
Okay. And you cut, hand-pick and deliver yourselves?
Not every store. The Bay of Plenty we deliver ourselves, and everywhere else we're just using shipping.
It's a long way from Harbin in northern China, where Carly had a successful career selling shoes. She arrived from China in 2007 after meeting her Kiwi husband Steve, and Jiang Yu followed 2 years later, completing her schooling at Te Puke High.
I want to find out all about how you came to be doing this, but shall we have a look at what's happening this morning?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we every day it's quite similar but a little bit different. Of course, we do planting. It's one of the most important things at the farm. It's one of our daily tasks is planting the trays and grains, and all the sort of trays get planted on this sort of area, as you can see. It's
right. So it's all at the right height, so you're not having to bend over, and a lot of this beautiful rich soil is going into trays.
Yes.
They need to plant daily because it's about a fortnight between sowing till harvest, and they have to keep pace with the orders and deliveries due down the track. The demand for Mama Kali's microgreens is so high now, they've employed Kate Crossman full-time. Kate, what's happening here?
So we just filled the trays with soil and we're just levelling it out before we press it and then put the seeds on it.
And Kali over here as well, you're doing the same thing?
Yeah, I'm teaching them.
You're teaching?
Yeah, hope as well.
You're an expert.
Yeah.
So how do you enjoy this job compared to the kiwi fruit industry?
One, it's their family to me, so it's working with family, which is just great, essentially. And we're all female, so it's great.
All the girls together in the greenhouse?
Exactly.
Was there much to learn?
Yes, yeah, there was a lot to learn, just because it's a different type of growing than plonking something in the ground and then letting it do its thing.
Like hundreds of little babies, aren't they, really?
They are, yeah.
Having to keep an eye on and make sure they're going well.
Growing well,
What are your tasks? What are the jobs that you do, especially?
So we all do pretty much about the same thing. Come in, do the planting, help with the packing, the cutting, the clean up afterwards, bring in the babies out of the cabinet. Yeah.
Before Kate came on board a year ago, Jiang Yu says they were potting the greens in an even smaller shed.
We grow quite faster than we thought. We started really small. We just started with the farmers market in Tauranga and Hamilton, and then we sort of grew from there. It's quite a simple process. Microgreen is definitely the fastest growing veggies out there. Summertime it takes approximately maybe 7 to 9 days from seeds to harvest. Wintertime I'll say about 2 weeks, 14 days. So it does start from you just saw before with the planting. So we plant pretty much on a schedule days, and then from the trays planting, we soil seeds, and then it goes into our sprout cabinets,
which is just here.
Yeah, so this is our sprout cabinet. It's also.
Shall we open it and see what's in there?
Yeah, so it's also purposely built. We have a heating panel in the back of the cabinet, sort of like keep all the little babies nice and warm, especially in the winter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, summertime we don't really need the heater, but winter is really, really helpful.
So they need to sprout in a dark place?
Yes, so which a lot of people actually don't really realise. They think they need to be out in the sun or need the water every day. Actually, that's not true. You can easily give a good drink when you're planting and then put them in the nice dark spot like a hot water cupboard or in your pantry with something sort of on top, keep it moist. And take about 3 to 4 days from seeds to sort of sprout. So it sprouts like a nice yellow golden colour.
Yes, starved of light.
Yes. So those ones, the bright ones, they're pretty much ready to come out today. And we'll have the baby ones sort of just sprouting.
And the bricks on top is for what reason?
It's not necessary, but with the weight on top of the seeds, it helps the baby seeds develop a healthy root system underneath. So, sometimes if you don't use the weight on top of the greens, they can grow a little bit uneven. We try to get everyone to go at the same speed and they all get the same amount of sun.
And it looks nice in the packet, I suppose, all being the same length.
Yes.
We've got fans going in here, that's what you can hear in the background. Is it important to have good ventilation?
Yes, it is really important because they're so small and they've been planted really closely. Without the fan, without the air circulation, they're actually too close together. There could be too much moisture in between each little grains. With the fan, it just help the grain push through all the air that's sitting still and help them grow healthy. Yeah.
While Kate's busy planting and misting the next crop, there's time for Jiang Yu and Kali to slip out to that first little shed where it all began. You're taking me out the back here.
Yeah, so this greenhouse is no longer for growing microgreens. It's solely Mum's hobby doing indoor plants. And that's how this is how it started.
This is tiny. This is your standard domestic tiny little greenhouse.
Yeah, this is about 12 square meters.
And this is where you started?
Yeah, that's how it started. We used all those wooden shelves we first built. Me and Mum was planting on that tiny little trolley in the middle.
Oh, yes.
With all the trays, but we were only doing not that much trays. It's just a mixture of different plants and veggies in here, and we just felt like we need to do something else, and we're just not sure what will be the good thing for us to do. And we
You wanted to start a business.
We did. That's sort of the plan, was starting a business with growing something, of course. That's always our idea. More likely doing the indoor plants, because that's our passion, but it wasn't quite worked out for us.
They were too late into the market for indoor plants, so settled on the type you can eat. Their microgreens business was born in 2022.
Where did this love for green plants come from?
Oh, just from natural. I just very young, just loved the plants, but no time, too busy to business.
What were you doing? What were you
China?
doing back in China?
At the beginning, I just sell the shoes.
In a big shop?
Big shop. Many different sports shoes.
Mum managed shoe stores, so she was doing really well, and but she, like she mentioned, she always wanted to have lots of garden, but being in the city is really hard. We have very small apartments and hard to have a garden, and when we came to New Zealand, it's like dream come true for Mum.
I love so much, it's natural. It's just very nice.
It was thanks to some help from her mother-in-law that got Carly started in the growing business.
She's Kiwi lady, so she had beautiful outside garden lady, very nice. And I just same design, just thinking, and sometimes copy. Yeah, just outside or inside, and just the cutting, and I just try, and it just happened.
You have what we call green fingers.
是你会弄植物的意思。你很自然的就会
Yes,
种
that's
植
right. That's right. Yeah. Because I love
it.
I like. You're very enjoying that. Yeah, green fingers.
Tell me what happened over the pandemic period, because that's what kind of thrust you into this business.
Yes, it's sort of a push. I'm always sort of in the mind of doing something on my own that I would actually enjoy. My job was care for indoor plants. That was my job title, indoor plant technician. So I goes to different offices. I'll design the plants for the layout. I would water them and look after them as well. So with the pandemic, a lot of the big office, like the council buildings and big power company, they end up closing the main office. Everyone working from home, and the plants was in the building. They had to be removed. After that sort of happened, I lost my job, and me and Mum already had a really big crush or passion on the indoor plants, and we thought we could do something along the line with that. And realistically, for us two girls, we're doing a traditional farming. It's just not realistic. We don't have machinery. We don't have that much land, and we sort of look at maybe we could do something like microgreen. It's easy. It's not a lot of investment. We just bought some trays. We did a bit of research as well, and we're quite lucky in the Bell Plain. There's no other microgreen growers in this area.
And this is a growing area.
Yes. So
with a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And I guess they like their microgreens, do they?
Yes, they
Is
do.
that what you found?
Yeah, we found microgreens so versatile. Also, I guess it started a little bit like a trendy, fancy garnish. I think that's what people think. I put a little bit of microgreen on my meal, make it look nice. And that's what people always thought about microgreens, and that's sort of what we kind of thought at the beginning too. When we start growing, we thought we could grow lots and then take to the market and go to the restaurant and etc. But that wasn't quite how the way everything is heading. We're going to the market, and we have people that love them and they eat them every day. And they said, can't live without it in my sandwich. And then we thought, it must be really it's special. We knew it's special, so I started doing more research on microgreen. Now we start to get really, really amazed how beneficial it can be to your diet.
Back in the greenhouse, the daily tasks continue to ensure the microgreens get off to a good start.
So now it looks like some misting is happening here, some water, some very fine mist going on those trays. And Carly, this is one of the chores that you do. How often?
This is for water, 12 times.
The greens do need a really good drink before they go into a dark place, because if they sprouting for 3-4 days, we don't water anything in between. So we have to give them enough for them to be happy for another 4 days. When they come out, they should be sort of this type of color, nice and golden, and we'll give them a really, really good drink. And from sort of this will be 5 days, nice and golden, still fairly small. And when you're moving to sort of this size, this will be probably about 8 days. So it's only a few days different. They start changing colors and the leaves start to open up more as well.
So they've gone from this rather kind of pale and skinny looking sprout, and then they turn into these beautiful, very thick leaves.
Yeah, we have people describing them like it looks like a fluffy carpet.
True, it does.
A green fluffy carpet, because when you sort of pack it up and move it around, it's quite nice. It jiggles around a little bit, and
with pops of purple in there as well.
Yes.
How many different types of microgreen do you have? I see you have different colours.
We grow total 5 different type of microgreens. We have the broccoli, which is really nutrient dense. It's proven to have up to 40 times more nutritious than standard broccoli, like mature broccolis. It tastes very similar to mature broccoli. It's nice and mild. Yes, it's one of our very popular greens. Yes, people use them in smoothies, juicings, and you can actually, of course, use it in sandwiches, salads as well. It's nice and mild. There's no spice in it at all, which a lot of people do enjoy that.
Oh. Yeah. And can I taste a little bit?
Of course. I have had people taste them and they think it's really sweet. If you don't have like a really sweet palate, or if you don't eat a lot of sugar, you found microgreen broccoli really sweet. Yeah, which is quite nice.
And the purple?
The purple is radish mix, and it's nice and zesty, a little bit spicy. Also, is a lot of people's favorite as well. So those two totally opposite. One's nice and mild, one's like spicy and zesty. Yeah, so,
and this one over here?
And
this is a mixture, isn't it?
Yeah, so we grow, I'll say, 80% of our greens mixture. Me and Mum actually come up with this mix. We trialed and mix different greens before, and we come up with 8 different veggie blend. Being like background Chinese, we love the number 8, and more the better, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we come up with 8 veggie blends, and that's definitely our most popular greens there. And you could just use very small bit on your sandwiches, and it give you like really good amount of nutrient in your sort of daily diet.
Now tell me about how it is working with your mum.
It's
always fighting.
No, not always fighting. Of course, there'll be up and downs, just like mother and daughter. You're on the same page, but you also have your own ideas and stuff. But I feel like me and Mum definitely grow a long way from the beginning, understanding what each other's like strengths and weakness, and I guess compromising as well. And of course, Mum always come on top because it's your mother.
What about your family back home in China? What do they think about what you're doing?
他说在家里面人觉得你在种这个菜怎么样？
Very good. She's you city girl, but you movement farmer girl.
Yeah. It's a bit of shock for them, because Mum always been like appeared to be a city person, and the same as the family back at home. We don't have farmers in the family. Yeah. And
now why? So you have actually named the business after your mother, haven't you?
Yes. And without Mum, this business wouldn't be here, without Mum and Steve's support. And when we're thinking of the name for the business, it's kind of like Mama Color, and it sounded really good. It rhymes. It feels a little bit, I guess, down to earth. We're not a big fancy business or anything, so we don't need a fancy name. We're not sure what's the future will bring. We actually just want to sort of focus, grow good products. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves and just enjoying the process and just see where the future sort of lead for us, and just keep the quality good and still enjoying what we're doing. And just like Mum said at the beginning, we love what we're doing, and it makes us happy.
Does it make financial sense? Is it paying?
Yes, it's doing more than we could expect for being a small business. It's only been 2 years, so much more than we thought we could do.
I should get into the microgreen business, I think.
Jiang Yu of Mama Carly's farm. I was also talking to her mother, Carly, and Kate Crossman, who was also working in the greenhouse. Sunday is the highlight of the week for Carly when she greets her regular customers at the farmers market. And that's us for now. It's great to have your feedback and ideas for future stories. You can let us know by emailing country@rnz.co.nz.
Click follow on your app if you don't want to miss an episode of Country Life. And if you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love you to give us a plug on social media or tell a friend about the show. Click the share button in this app to send this episode to a friend.
The stories today were produced and presented by Janina Schwanecker, me, Sally Round, and Cosmo Kentish Barnes. And in the studio production team today, David Knowles and Phil Benge.
Catch you next time.
Ka kite.